What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to The Fringe. There's another little lovely technicality. Welcome to the stream. I hope you're all doing very well. I hope you guys had a great week and a great weekend as we jump into another stream, as we kind of try to catch up. Last week, we had some technical difficulties with work being done in the area and my internet going down about 20 minutes into a stream. So let's try this again, shall we? Let's see if we can get this moving in the right direction. And first off, let's get caught up in the chat, shall we? With Susan. How you doing, Susan? Welcome to the stream. FJT with the honk honk. Welcome into the stream. How you doing? And another decoy jumping in with the honk honk. There's lots to talk about this week. Boy, is there ever. There is a lot. The squirrels in my neighborhood keep grabbing my nuts. Well, that's better than anybody else, I suppose. Megan jumping in with a happy Sunday, everybody. How you doing, Megan? Welcome into the stream. Thank you for joining us this evening. Man, what a week it's been. What a couple of weeks it's been. I sat here on stream last week talking about my trip back from Silverwood theme park, where I took my children on vacation for a week, and we were kind of getting caught up on everything that was going on there. And I was talking a lot about American patriotism and how it's very different over there in comparison to Canadian patriotism. And of course, there was a video I put out this week talking about that, and I hope you guys caught that one. It was a bit of a different video. It was a bit of something new, just to kind of really more like an editorial, I guess, to sit down and talk to the audience about how people felt in this country in comparison to what I'd seen over there. And I know a lot of people who did catch it enjoyed the video. Some people have reached out to me and told me they enjoyed the video. So thank you for tuning into that. I hope it was a good one, because again, it was a bit of a risk in the sense that I hadn't really done anything on that level before of that kind of video. Because usually if you watch the channel, we pick out like a story that's going around or an article, we talk about it. And I usually end off the video by asking you guys, what do you feel? What do you think? So it was a little bit different. Trudeau's a commie coming in. Good evening. Welcome in. Good to see you in the stream. Thanks for jumping in. But yeah, Silverwood was crazy. And one thing we didn't get into last week that we were talking about, one thing that I want to talk about, because boy, did I get a lot of flack in a video this week. I was talking about the price of food. There was an article from Brian Lilly in the Toronto Sun, good old flip-flopping Brian Lilly. And it was talking about food. And I mentioned that sometimes I buy diet soft drinks. And of course, people in the comments lost their minds. Derek, you're killing yourself. Don't drink diet soft drinks. Are you nuts? Oh, look at what you're doing. Now, I'd mentioned in that video, I don't drink coffee. And one thing that's really funny about that video, now notice I'm not triggered by this because I really don't care. I don't drink coffee. I never have drank coffee ever since I was in high school. My friends used to call me up and, oh, let's go for a coffee. Because in the 90s, you could still smoke indoors. So my friends would always want to go for coffee because they were able to sit in a restaurant and smoke cigarettes. So that was always the thing to do. But the problem with coffee I always had was the smell. And I think it was, I got yelled at a lot as a kid because, hey, I got into a lot of trouble. And I think it was the stale coffee breath smell that just kind of turned me off of coffee. I never really got into it. I never liked it. So I don't consume anything really with caffeine. So some mornings or some days, if I'm feeling a little tired, if I'm feeling a little drained, I'll sometimes pop a diet drink. And I got onto diet drinks because I don't really want to consume sugar. And there was a short period of time where I got into diet drinks and I kind of thought, I'll make a switch, I'll do things. But I found that even when I got off of them and I went back to regular soft drinks occasionally, especially with drinks like Mountain Dew, I went back to regular Mountain Dew and it had this weird aftertaste, like I just drank a battery and I couldn't get back into it. So I'd become accustomed to these diet drinks. Now, the funny thing about that video was that I didn't mention in that video how much I consume of diet drinks, and people lost their minds in the comments. And I found it very funny because so what I have here is what I picked up in the US. I bought some diet Mountain Dew because in Canada, we have Mountain Dew Zero Sugar. It comes in a black label and they only put it in cans. I prefer my drinks out of a bottle, not because I'm a baby, but because I just find it tastes better. I don't know. Is anybody else like that? Does anybody else find it tastes different between can or bottle? But I wanted to buy the bottles. These are also, the bottles you buy in Canada are 750 mils. These are 500 mils in the States. So it is less. But I spoke with my doctor years ago about this whole aspartame thing. And I said, a lot of people say aspartame's a terrible thing. It's going to kill you. It's going to harm you. I know that these sodas kind of bloat you a little bit and whatnot. But my doctor talked to me about aspartame and he said, listen, unless you're over consuming, as in you're constantly like some people, for example, when they drink coffee, drink 3, 4, 5 cups a day. Um, he says if you're having 5 or 6 a day, if you're drinking like 4 liters worth of this stuff a day or something in excess, then yes, you can potentially have a problem. But he said the studies that have been done that he has seen published um, basically have said that if you, in order to have a problem or a health problem as a result of aspartame, you would have to consume a very high to unachievable amount to have a problem. And I told him, now here's the secret as to what I said in that video about drinking diet drinks. It's this drink here, this 500 ml drink, I usually only have about one of these a day and sometimes one every 2 days. So that's how often I consume a diet drink. And again, it's more of a pick me up for me or a treat or something that most of the time it's water for me. I usually do water or that Mio stuff in water because sometimes I like a little bit of flavor in there. But it's a treat for me. And when I spoke to my doctor and said, look, I kind of have one of these maybe once a day, maybe once every couple of days, he says, yeah, you're not going to have a problem. He says diet drinks are just another form of carbonated water. In fact, he actually recommended me to the time of getting a soda stream, much like my friend Clyde do something where he said, carbonate your water and it'll pull you away from those diet drinks and you'll get off of that. I've seen people that drink a lot of soda in a day. I can't do that. To me, some drinks taste like candy almost. So I don't really get into them as much as people think I do. Again, people look at my size and they just assume, oh, this guy consumes a lot of things. It's funny because when Clyde was here and we were doing Stampede coverage and everything, I remember him asking me because the first thing Clyde did when we hit the grounds was he went from food truck to food truck, trying all the Western Stampede kind of food or anything that really caught his attention. And I didn't really eat much. And he says to me, don't you eat? And I says, I usually have a little bit of light food in the morning, but I don't usually eat till dinner time. And usually that's moderate. And he says, how are you this size? But, and even when Marty up north came over to visit, he says to him, he doesn't eat very much, but he's the size he is. Part of it's my height. I'm only 5'5". And, I also have now over the years, we've discovered that I have a little bit of an intolerance to gluten that anytime I'll eat a sandwich or something, I balloon right up. So I have to watch breads. I have to watch carbs. And unfortunately, those are my weaknesses. I'm very prone to those things. And we've talked about that before on the channel. Not that I'm making this a weight thing. It really isn't my concern. I'm happy with myself. But I have been working out. I've been trying to get on the cycle and do spin again so that, I can lose a little bit before we go to Disney in September with the family. And yeah, it's fun to just watch people lose their minds. It's really what people don't know. And some folks that I talk to outside of my YouTube videos always say, why do you include so much personal information in your videos or your live streams? And I said, I sometimes do it on purpose because I enjoy watching everybody's reactions. And it is quite funny. I think it's funny. Angry Canadian jumping in. Why is my comment deleted? I have no idea. Unless one of my moderators are in here removing comments, I haven't deleted any. Angry Canadian, I'm drinking as much coffee as I want. Studies be damned. And that's kind of the thing, is that I think you get one spin on this earth, so why be miserable? I know guys who I've got a friend who's a personal trainer, and I've seen their lifestyle, and I'm very happy for them. I'm happy that they have the discipline to do those things for a living. But I've seen people that do those sort of things, not him, but those sort of things where they eat foods they hate, they drink nothing that makes them happy. They don't go out late. They don't consume alcohol. They don't, and that's okay if that works for them. But I know people that do it and they're miserable because they say, well, I got to keep up my physique and I have to keep the image that I do. You see it with Hollywood actors all the time. Chris Pratt was infamous for doing his "What's My Snack" or whatever it was that he used to do online all the time. while filming his Marvel and Jurassic Park movies. And you almost feel sorry for some of those people because you could see every time he ate something just how happy he was to to try and eat something that was maybe different. I know Hugh Jackman has said many times that when he plays Wolverine, all he eats is steamed chicken and rice. So by the end of the movie, by the end of the filming, I seen it behind the scenes where he was saying he couldn't wait to go home and have his wife's lasagna because it's just such a crazy schedule they put those guys on. So I think, you know what, you get one spin around this earth, live a little. Don't go nuts. Don't go crazy. But everything in moderation, everything in proportion. Like my wife, I tell her all the time we go out to a restaurant or something and she says, I don't know if I should order a Caesar or something. It's, hey, you worked all week, get a drink, enjoy yourself, live a little. There's nothing wrong with drinking or enjoying yourself. Angry Canadian says Clyde burns more calories than he eats. That's why he's thin. Basic physics. Absolutely. And that's, again, part of my end of things. And again, I try to work out at least 4 times a week. A lot of what I've been doing lately is cardio. And I know you're supposed to split that up, but I find that I don't know how, like I know how Clyde does it because he's on his feet pulling wrenches all day. But when I'm at home with my kids and I'm doing what they want to do, like people have seen me on Clyde's Discord. I'll sometimes stream, video games I'm playing at night or things like that. Even when I used to be on Twitch before getting into the book business, playing retro games, the only time I would do anything for myself was pretty much at nighttime when the kids were in bed. And it was my time to focus on me because I figure that when my children are awake, that's time to focus on family. That's time to focus on the things that they want to do. And we do try to do some active stuff. But if we go to the park or the playground, I mean, there's only so much I can do while the kids are running around that I can't do everything they're doing, or else I'd probably break the playground. But it's trying to find the time, and sometimes you got to make time. But it's been fun. It's been fun getting into it. It's been nice to get into it because I find, you get some more energy about yourself. You get happier about yourself, and things honestly turn out very well when you're doing that. Now, this week, Trudeau's a comment. I'm just going to reach this. I'm a trucker, works nights. It's hard to find the energy and time. I fully agree. Now, this week, one thing I wanted to bring up was something that I kind of got into that I wanted to look at because last week we were talking a little bit before my stream got cut off. Sorry, I'm just looking at my other monitor as I try to pick this up. I was trying to find it before the stream started. We were talking a little bit about the Fast and the Furious arcade that I picked up in the US while I was there. Of course, it was a US exclusive, which is part of the reason that I wanted to make sure that I grabbed it while I was in Iowa / Spokane, Washington. Or Idaho, I should say, not Iowa. And I can't, here we go. I found the video of what I wanted to show you guys. So I don't, I've been collecting arcades, as you can see behind me, for quite some time. And I know we don't really usually talk about arcades on this channel, but I think I found what I wanted to do to end my pastime, because I'll be honest, collecting these machines is a bit of an addiction, especially with these 3/4 scale ones. A lot of people say, well, why don't you make or collect real arcade machines? And well, I've got my fully restored Donkey Kong Jr. behind me, and that was a fun project. But the thing I find with that is that if I ever want to move it, I need a dolly and a couple of people. It weighs over 300 pounds. Again, with something that's old, that's out of production, that's essentially a collectible, you want to be as careful as possible when moving these things now, and you definitely need help. So the 3/4 scale cabinets that I buy, I enjoy because they're light and because they're easy to move. If I've got to sell one or make space, they don't take up as much room as a full arcade. But I started looking into some solutions because the problem I have is that I'm running out of room in my game room. I actually have a Star Wars arcade on its way in the next week or so. Hopefully it's on pre-order, so whenever it gets here, it gets here. But once that arcade gets here, I'm essentially out of space in my game room. So if I want to get any more, I have to sell some off or get a bigger house. And I'm guessing my wife is going to tell me to sell some off if it comes down to that. But what I was looking at is the problem with these machines. While I have nostalgia for some of these machines, and I love the way they look, for example, my Terminator 2 machine, I love the way the artwork looks. I like the way the machine looks. It's all nostalgia for me. So I like that kind of stuff. But as these companies keep coming out with more and more games, I start looking at the costs and saying, I can't afford to keep buying these machines. And I can't afford to upgrade every single time they come out with a new game to play just because I want the arcade experience. I can play these games. Now, these games you can play on emulators on your television, your computer, whatever have you. But I like the feeling of playing on an actual machine. So what I actually found over this last little week, and I'd been researching it a while, but I finally took a look into it. I'm going to share the screen here and show you guys what I was talking about. There's a company in the United States called Extreme Home Arcades. And I essentially found this machine that they build. Now, this is a 55-inch monitor that comes in this arcade alongside an active marquee at the top. So I actually reached out to these guys this week to ask about sponsorship or if they'd be willing to give me a slight discount. And we'll get into the price in a second. But just take a look at this machine. So it's a 4-player cabinet. This is called their Megacade XL. And you can see as they scroll down here, you've got your 55-inch screen, your active marquee, you've got speakers. That little sensor at the top is for your light guns. So it does have working light guns. Now, as they go down to the control panel, you can see this thing has 4-player. It's got a 4-player joystick, 4-player lit up buttons. You can get lit up joysticks, the trackball, spinners. It's got everything you need, as well as a 4 terabyte drive. So this thing has every game pretty much made in arcade's history from the 70s all the way to current. There are actual current arcade games. So Raw Thrills or like any of these Golden Tees or Buck Hunters that you see in places, they actually have these loaded into the machines. It's quite a large machine. Now, it doesn't look very big in the video, but Extreme Home Arcades, they've been in the business for a while. And of course, they add all the bells and whistles. They've got the ringed pedestals on the bottom and whatnot. These machines, now I contacted the guy because they put an i7 computer in these. And I contacted the gentleman who runs Extreme Home Arcades. His name's Dave. And I asked him, what am I looking at to get one of these machines? And he says, if you want something that's not going to be touched for quite some time in terms of technology, they're always updating their games and those get added in for free. You get the support from them if anything goes wrong. It's like Geek Squad. You connect online, they fix it remotely. So you don't have to send it off or do anything. And anytime they upgrade their hard drives, you mail in your old hard drive out of the arcade. They send it back fully loaded with whatever they've added to the machine. So you get that ongoing support, which is nice. The problem is the US to Canadian dollar, because for me to order one of those machines, I'm probably looking in the zone of about $10,000, which sounds like a lot, but the average realistic pinball machine runs between $12,000 and $15,000. These arcade 1-up 3/4 scale machines run about $700 to $800 a piece on average. So really, if you think about it, it's about the price of 10 of these machines, but you got everything. So I talked to my wife, who holds now, not because I'm afraid of buying something like that, but I like her to know anytime I'm spending money in this house or thinking about spending money. So she has agreed that if I were to sell off some of the arcades in here and make space, because let's face it, if I got one of those things, I wouldn't need any of these machines anymore because they'd all be on that large machine. I, of course, would keep my Donkey Kong Jr., my pinball, and a select couple of machines like my driving cabinets. But the majority of them would go. And I think I'd be okay with that. Now, I don't review arcades on my channel, but if you guys would ever want to see that being reviewed, it's a good business write-off. So let me know in the chat if you guys would ever want to see that. And maybe at some point in the future, definitely not anytime soon, but some point maybe in the near future, I could order one of those. It takes about 3 months to get here. With the customs and the brokerage and everything, I'd have to figure out, but maybe we could review one of those on the channel. That would be that'd be pretty fun. It's get caught up in the chat here. Angry Canadian, collecting video game paraphernalia isn't an addiction, it's a mental illness. I know, I have a full house of Zelda stuff. You know, it's funny. I have every Zelda game in box from the very first release all the way into current, including special editions, some sealed. I'm a Zelda fanatic. I'll actually, you know what? One of my streams, I'll bring in some of my Zelda stuff. I too have that addiction, and it is a mental illness. You do get sucked in. But yeah, I mean, it's Zelda, right? FJT went to a soccer game in halftime. They only accept credit card for food and drink. It's disgraceful. See, I don't like that. And that's what worries me. And you know what? On the topic of video games, getting into that, it kind of coincides with each other, is that you're seeing like I went into a Toys R Us this afternoon with my wife because, you know, she has not only my 3 children, but a full grown child as a husband. And we're touring the Toys R Us. All the video games were gone. All their physical games were gone. They're really pushing digital. And when it comes to currency, most of these restaurants now, or any kind of establishments where you'd normally give money, they've all got tap now. It's always tap this, tap that. And I'm not a fan. When you think about everything that happened during the Freedom Convoy with the freezing of bank accounts and taking people's money away from them and their access to their money, digital's pretty scary when you think about it. You know, all these companies push for digital. But what happens when, you know, I've always said, you look at 9/11, which was a terrible incident, and that was a form of terrorism. But I even said back in like 2004, 2005, they're not going to worry about airplanes anymore. They're not going to worry about kind of screwing people over in that fashion by killing thousands and thousands of people. I think the next form of terrorism is going to be cyber, because if you shut down a company's ability to disperse money, you can cut them off at the knees. You can destroy their stock markets. You can destroy their whole banking systems. You can put people out on the streets. It's going to be crazy. It's going to be nuts. Angry Canadian says, buy a bigger house. I don't think my wife will go that way. Mystical jumping in the stream. Welcome into the stream, Mystical. I have a Pokemon plush addiction. My son has one of those addictions. It's crazy. Trudeau's I'm a COD freak. You know what's funny? Call of Duty had skins from The Boys. If you guys ever watched that TV show, and I love that show, and I struggled for the longest time. I don't like supporting the cost of DLC on that game. On Modern Warfare 2, I play it with my brother in my off time because you can jump in, jump out. It's not like a 300-hour game where you got to focus all your time into it. But I had to buy the Black Noir skin. I was either that or Homelander, and I tend to get a little guilty pleasure out of Call of Duty myself. FJT, GameStop is closing down. And you know what's funny? Again, with the whole digital, that the push for digital, it's kind of, so I remember back in the late 90s, early 2000s, going into GameStop and seeing big box PC games starting to go digital, because that was kind of the arrival of things like Steam. And it was around that time. Now, this is going to make me sound really old, but I remember going in with my friends, and Xbox Live was just starting to hit the market. And I think it was $20 a year at that time. And it came with a headset. So all you bought was the membership and a headset, and you'd plug it into your original Xbox controller. And I remember looking at that, laughing with my friends, saying, who would pay to play online games? Like, that's so stupid. I could never imagine that happening. And not even 20 years later, here we are. And it's been going on for quite some time. And digital seems to be the way to go. And the thing I don't understand are people, when it comes to movies or games or anything like that, digital content, people that pre-order, they're not going to run out. The whole point of pre-ordering used to be because you didn't want to lose out or show up on launch day and there's no more copies. Like, I don't understand people who support these companies for digital content when you don't know if their product is going to be any good, if it's going to have any issues. I don't get it. I don't. But this is it's kind of turning into a gaming stream here. So we'll get off the gaming topic. I'll try my best to move away from it, because I kind of got into the arcades and now we're talking into gaming. I pay cash just to see their face expression. It's funny, when we were in the US, of course, if I use my debit or credit, there's charges every time I do it. So we had to do cash. And it was the same thing. Anytime we paid cash at a restaurant, we went into this great restaurant in the US called the Texas Roadhouse. It's basically like another Montana's or something like that, or Outback Steakhouse. And as soon as she came by, she brought the machine, and I said, "Oh, I got cash," and she kind of just looked and says, "I don't know if I can get you change," and I don't worry about it because your tip's in there. I don't care. But it's going to be interesting when we go to Disney in September, because although I'm sure a lot of people around the Disney parks use cash because it's a lot of tourists, but it'll be interesting to see how that goes. It's going to be crazy. Um, Shop Microplay, if you have one, they'll be cheaper. I usually go into a Microplay whenever I go to Winnipeg when I'm checking in on my retro games. They've got some good stuff. CB jumping in. So what happens when you're at a restaurant and the pay machine goes offline? Do you get a free meal? I wouldn't think so. That's a good question. I'd be curious on that. And that's again where I talk about this form of cyber terrorism. If terrorists tomorrow, again, instead of hijacking airplanes, if they shut down a satellite or something that essentially keeps all the records and links to people's bank accounts, even if it was just one major bank like Bank of America, you wouldn't have to shut down Chase Bank or any of those other banking systems, but just Bank of America. People would be losing their minds. There'd be rioting in the streets because, again, how are people going to buy their groceries? How are they going to put gas in their cars? How are they going to function? Especially because, again, you could take your card to a bank and say, well, here's my card, give me my money. They'd have no way to check what's in your account because their systems would be down. So I just find it unbelievably ironic and funny how many people trust a digital system knowing all the hiccups and problems that we have when it comes to technology. I've seen things like Apple Pay and card tapping. And again, yes, it's convenient. I'm all for it. I probably use it more than anybody else in my family, but at the same time as I argue it, it's tough when it comes to digital currency. It's what happens, right? That's scary. That's the scary thing. So in this last week, what's been going on? Well, we've seen Marco Mendicino took a hike. Good old Pinocchio has left. Sorry, he was fired. He can try and sum it up however he likes. Bottom line, folks, he was fired, and we all know it. What's that going to mean for Trudeau's cabinet? And with what's that little person they had working there too? Omar left as well. I was talking to a friend of mine in Manitoba who says, the rumors about this fall election are looming. And he says, I'm worried after the whole thing that, again, I did a video on it of the person saying that Trudeau was a pathetic puke. With the anti-Semitism accused in that video, they said that, he's worrying that, Trudeau is doing his usual fear mongering and his tactics. He may win another election. I don't think it's going to be that cut and dry. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't honestly, like, a lot of people keep telling me, hey, you don't know Ontario, you don't know Quebec. I don't really think Trudeau stands a snowball's chance in hell of winning the next election. I don't know. What about you guys? Do you think, you think that's going to happen? I just don't. If somebody could explain to me how exactly Trudeau would pull off that election, because when you look at the numbers, when you look at even polls, and I know a lot of people don't pay attention to the polls, Pierre has a considerable lead in polls that if there was an election tomorrow, he takes a double-digit lead now over Justin Trudeau in terms of favoritism. So I struggle to think about how Justin Trudeau could convince Canadians to possibly vote for him again after everything he's pulled when it comes to Chinese interference, when it comes to all of his scandals, when it comes to the spending he's done, the inflation, the fact people can't even afford to get groceries right now. People can't afford to do anything. And it's only going to get worse. And that's one thing I was talking to a friend of mine about the other day is I said, if you think it's bad now, it's going to get much worse. And people keep saying, oh, we can't afford things. We can't afford things. I think in about 6 months to 8 months time, you're going to look back right now and say, we had it easy. I think things are going to get nasty for the next little while, which is part of the reason I'm not selling off my arcades and getting a $10,000 multicade, because even though you have the cash, you don't want to spend it right now, because I think things are going to get a little nuts. It's going to be crazy. Mystical jumping in. It feels that every little has changed with the shuffle. Nothing's changed with the shuffle. I mean, they brought in this new, the new mental health minister or whatever, which was the person who said that chanting, what was it? Freedom was the same as Heil Hitler. So that's going to work out well. The beat up Britney Spears game. Can we beat up Trudeau? That'd be nice. Digital currency is very, very dangerous thing. There will be huge consequences. Absolutely. Ain't no secret. Welcome into the stream. Lametti, I was in shock. That, you know what? They all got to pretend that they're taken back by that. But I mean, come on. We all saw it coming. We all, with the coalition, even if he loses, he can tell the governor general that he can form government. Liberals lost to conservatives and kept the power. So they did. The coalition's one thing, but here's the problem when it comes to the coalition. And here's where I don't think Trudeau can win again. I don't think Jagmeet will get a vote. His constituency, if you look at the people of Burnaby, they hate him. They absolutely hate him. And I don't see him getting the votes necessary to even hold his seat if he runs again. And that therein lies the problem, I think, is that even if Jagmeet lost his seat and they put a new leader in, I don't feel that there's enough there to form a coalition government that because there are NDPs that disagree with what Jagmeet is doing. The problem is that it's a very unified party in the sense that what the leader says goes. And Jagmeet's kind of pulling the reins right now. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. I don't see it happening. I think Pierre's got enough of a lead that if he plays his cards right, and I think, again, a lot of Canadians are just tired and they're fed up. They've had enough. And I think enough Canadians have had enough that he doesn't stand a chance. The NDP needs to lose about half their seats. I think they stand a chance of doing that. And again, this is just speculation, but I think, again, enough people are fed up because the problem is, like, even Jagmeet Singh, he can sit and complain about, oh, look at the Westons with Superstore. They're taking all these profits while people are suffering. People are suffering because you guys spent money like it was on fire during COVID. This isn't the Westons that are doing this to people. It's the government. And that's the problem. That people aren't stupid anymore. And that's the thing, is they're hoping people are stupid. The Bloc and the Green have to go. See, so there's usually support for the Bloc when it comes to Quebec. And again, I think some of those are turning conservative. It's going to be interesting. I won't say that Pierre's got it 100%. Because again, we've seen it toss up in every election. Things can change, but I think that he stands a better chance than most people think he does. Well, we'll have to see. There's no way he won. Yeah. Well, and that's, again, Tracy, I fully agree. I've said the same thing about Jody Gondek in Calgary. Some of these people are installed or placed, and with Trudeau, it's a little easier to see where he's installed because he's bringing in all these immigrants and getting the immigrant vote. Because, I mean, they all think he's fantastic because he's bringing them into the country. He's giving them a place to stay. He's giving them free money. So, hey, don't bite the hand that feeds. It's a little more believable with Trudeau than somebody like Jody Gondek. But again, it'll be interesting to see. Jimmy Barbie Dolly needs to walk or wake the hell up. Yeah, well, it'll be interesting. I think it'll be interesting. Do I think there's going to be a fall election? I think there's a very strong possibility. 3 weeks ago, I would have said, nah, he's not that stupid. But when you look at everything that's going on this summer, Pierre obviously has some insight. He's not going to get taken off guard with it. The whole taking off the glasses, the whole, tight shirts and new haircut, and Trudeau running around taking his selfies, and they're all kind of in campaign mode already. The more they run around this summer, the more it's starting to show me that there's a very strong possibility that we're going to see a fall election called. Again, what would confuse me with a vote for Trudeau at that point is the common taxpayer to look at what he's doing and saying, you just ran an election 2 years ago. How much more taxpayer money are you going to waste? Elections aren't cheap. And at a time when Interest rates are at high levels and inflation's at the highest it's been since the 90s. Why are you calling an election? Like, that should be a nail in the coffin for a guy like Trudeau. But again, we've seen him skate on worse. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes. We can't carry 5+ parties in a system designed for 2 parties, yet vote splitting could cause Trudeau a win. We've talked about that before with Maxime. And anybody who wants to tout PPC, hey, you're entitled to your opinion. The problem with the PPC, and the one thing I constantly say is if you support the PPC, that's fine. Why can't Max get a seat is the question you should be asking yourself. If his ideas are so great and grand, why is he running in all of these conservative ridings instead of running in an NDP riding or somewhere where he could get his seat? I've talked to Clyde about it multiple times. He is vote splitting. And that's not to pick sides or say, oh, I prefer Pierre over this guy. It's just, you're looking at the mathematics of it. Why wouldn't he run in an NDP or a Liberal riding where he could get his seat? Why is he always running in conservative ridings? Max can't get his votes. And if you look at the turnouts, if you look at the voter turnouts for those seats, he doesn't come close. It's not like it's a hair thin margin. Nobody's giving Max the votes. So I'm not saying the PPC is a bad party or that they don't have good ideas or you shouldn't vote PPC. Vote for who you like. You're entitled to your opinions if you like PPC. I'm just saying that when you look at the history, when you look at what's coming up, even if you were going to vote PPC, I always find personally, and this is just my own personal preference, that when an election comes around, even if I supported the PPC, I'd be looking at things saying, my vote isn't going to get somebody in that seat and I don't want Trudeau again. So how do I make sure I don't have to deal with Trudeau? I vote for another party. And I know it's been said here, you can't do it with 2-tier parties. And I fully agree with that. So it's kind of a stalemate. It's what side of the devil do you want? I do think Pierre holds the best chance of fixing some of the problems in this country, only because he's a lot more responsible than Justin Trudeau. Do I trust him? No, absolutely not. I don't trust any politician. I don't trust Max. I don't trust Pierre. I sure as hell don't trust Justin Trudeau. But the problem is that somebody has to take the reins. And you want to look at competency. You want to look at responsibility. I don't really look at their platforms. I look at their history. And when I listen to Pierre talk, I've met the man in person. I've talked to him in person. I've watched him for years and said a long time ago, I really wanted him to run back even before Aaron O'Toole took the leadership, back when Andrew Scheer had the leadership. I was questioning why didn't Pierre run? Because what I did like then and I don't like now is that I miss the Pierre Poilievre that had the glasses, that stood up in the House, that always had facts backing up his claims. And he was hungry. He went for the jugular. And it kind of feels like, now he still has his days in the House. I'm not going to say he doesn't, but it kind of feels now like he's playing it safe. He doesn't want to offend the people that might cast him a vote or do anything he shouldn't say, or he's very careful. And I don't know who's running his campaign or telling him ditch the glasses, get the new look, do all these things. That's not what people want. People want the old Pierre. That's what got him the push to run for PM, was people liked what he was bringing to the table. And this is part of the thing that I've had an argument with anytime I've talked to these city councilors who say, well, I think you stand a good chance in this next election civically, but you need to watch how you attack Jody Gondek. You have to watch how you say things, because there's a way we handle politics and there's a way to behave proper in these things. And I've said, no. Part of the problem is you guys are all being prudent and nice with each other. Somebody has to take the gloves off and somebody has to say it like it is. And as somebody who's a regular tax-paying citizen, I'm going to do that. And if they don't like it, they don't have to back me. Because that's what I think people of the city want, is somebody who's not them, who's going to tell it like it is. And that's what I want from Pierre. I want somebody who's got a set of cojones, who's willing to say to people like Trudeau to shove it, that they don't know what's going on, skip the grandeurs, skip the usual formalities, and go for the jugular. I don't understand this whole change, this whole image. Like, whoever's giving him his advice is clearly screwed. I think it's going to end up costing him some votes. Let me get caught up in the chat here. Mystical's jumping in. Trudeau is definitely a narcissist, most likely a psychopath. Yep, but could he also be psychotic? Well, possibly. You need to ask. Help used to be more, or NDP, sorry, used to be more central left. They did. Back, see, I liked the NDP when it was Jack Layton. I didn't have any issues with Jack Layton. In fact, I liked a lot of his policies because he was for the working man. The NDP has done a massive change, especially since Jagmeet took the reins. He was pushed by the people. Yeah. His wife told him to ditch the glasses. So he says, yeah, but that's formalities. He doesn't want to say, listen, I have people who watch my campaigns. If you think Pierre Poilievre tweets his own tweets, he probably tweets out the occasional time, but he has somebody who does it for him the majority of the time. And anytime he's going to tweet, he has somebody check before he puts them out. I can tell you that when I met with him, like, I was asked by members of the Conservative Party to come to Ottawa to sign books for them and take photos with them. And they thought that what I had done with how the Prime Minister stole freedom was so great. Come to Parliament Hill. We're going to roll out the red carpet for you. That's what one of the messages that I got said. Now I get there, and of course I call Pierre's guys and say, hey, we were supposed to work together last year. I know I got a little busy. Our schedules were conflicted. Does Pierre have time to meet while I'm in town and all that? Oh, absolutely. He'd love to meet with you. Come meet him after question period. I go to the house and I'm given this whole list of things before I walk in there. You can't have your book in the picture. You can't give him your book in person. I actually had to give my copy for Pierre to Melissa Landsman to hand off to him in private, because after issues, not calling out Jeremy McKenzie, but after the whole press debacle with Jeremy McKenzie taking a picture with Pierre, they're like, well, we have to be careful now about every photo he takes and who he takes it with and everything that's going on. And I said, why? Like, he's got a whole team of people that are wrapped up in this stuff that make all these decisions for him. And I guess I always said that this trip to Ottawa kind of reminded me of the Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy and everybody look behind the curtain and see that it's just a man operating a machine. Pierre, before, and it goes along with the whole never meet your heroes thing, is that before, like, I knew Pierre from watching him on television and watching his addresses and listening to him say, you know, Trudeau's got to get out of here. One of my favorite videos of him ever was during the lockdowns when he was talking about the Kielburger scandal, and he kept saying, just a figure, please. How much did you pay your mother? Just a number, please. And he was so brash about it, and I really liked him. But then when I met with him, he came across as just a husk, just a puppet, that all these other people, his number two, his assistants, his team, they're all pulling the strings. But for who? Because he's not making his own decisions. They're telling him what he can and can't do. And he's listening to them. That's not who I want running my country. I want somebody who knows what's best, who can. I want a man who can make his own decisions running my country, not somebody who's going to be told what's within the best interests for PR. And that's, again, where I say I've already had conflicts with people in Calgary that are on council when I've said I'm going to run, that tell me to tone it down. No, I will not. Because toning it down is what has gotten us into this mess. You need somebody who's going to tell it like it is and say that facts don't care about your feelings. This is the real world. This is how the world works, and this is how we're going to get shit done. That's what this country needs, is a little bit of reality. And you're not getting it. His wife told him. Stupid. Did you tell him what you were told when you met him and ask if he agrees with it? So I didn't have the time. It was a very brief meeting. I mean, he told me he enjoyed my stuff. He was a fan. Keep up the good work. We talked a little bit about, because I live about a 5-minute walk from where he grew up in Calgary. Evidently, he and I would have graduated the same year from high school and gone to the same high school together had I have chosen to go to that high school instead of the one that I ended up at. And we had a good quick 5-minute conversation, but of course his assistant he's very busy. He needs to go. We're very happy we could do this meeting. And then every other time that he's been in town, I've tried to get a hold of his people and they're just, it's not a good time. It's not a good time. It's not a good time. Now they did reach out to me this summer and say, hey, we should do something together. We should work on something. And I've said, great. And unfortunately, my schedule while I'm in Disney conflicts again with their schedule. So I won't be doing that stuff. But I was very hesitant and leery to do it anyways, because I even remember saying to my wife the day I got the phone call, what, so they want to blow me off and then use me whenever it's good and convenient for them? I don't think so. It wasn't Pierre who called me. It was his people. So why should I drop what I'm doing to help his people? Now, if Pierre wants to give me a call and say, hey, I had a really great idea. Do you want to do something? Sure. I'll listen to that. I'll entertain it. But when it's his people, why am I helping you? Why am I going on? Now, I'm not some big celebrity. I'm not nothing important or famous. I'm guessing they had some ideas and they wanted my input or help with something, and that's fine. But, not going to happen. Not going to happen. He might be their puppet. I'm not their puppet. Again, part of the reason we're in this mess is that whoever's pulling the strings is screwing up the country. And I hate to say it, but it's also where I get a little bit of almost, I guess you could say, some form of sympathy when it comes to a guy like Justin Trudeau. I do not sympathize for him. Let me make that clear. I sympathize in the state that this is a man who's going to have a very hard time showing his face anywhere in this country when he's done being prime minister. He's going to have to move out of the country, is my guess, unless he finds some remote place to live. He'll still visit Canada or come back or be around occasionally, but I don't see him living anywhere where people are going to be happy to see him. This is a man who has children, and I often think back to Tamara's video before she got arrested, saying this is a man who has kids. I've taken digs at his kids distancing themselves from him in my videos. But I partially feel sorry for him because I sometimes question, is Justin Trudeau just another puppet? Because let's face it, folks, he's not the smartest man on the planet. So is he doing the same thing as Pierre, where there's somebody else just pulling the strings? I mean, we know he is. I shouldn't say it is he. We all know he is, but it's how much of what we see of Trudeau is actually Trudeau, is my question. We've seen videos of him from 20, 30 years ago saying smug things and talking again like a moron. But I think that's part of the reason why he's been in power for so long, is that whoever's in charge of the Liberal Party or whoever's in charge of these policies, when you think about the WEF or you think about anybody else, I think part of the reason that they've kept him around so long is because he's just so darn easy to manipulate. It's, I don't know. Handlers work. Next time, ask him if he likes being handled, or can you actually have his phone number? I do have his phone number. I just don't like to bother people on their private time. Or even when they're working. He's a very busy man. And anytime somebody gives me that number, unless they reach out to me first, when it's a person at that level, I don't bother them unless they come to me. I have no reason to call him. I'm just going to be very clear about that. I've had guys like Jordan Peterson say, give me a shout, do this, do that. Unless they make the first move, I'll usually follow up with like an email. But even having that number, I've been told you reach out to Pierre through his handlers. And that's how they do things. Tech West jumping in. How are you? Welcome into the stream. Do you think the climate agenda propaganda will be the largest issue during the upcoming election? Give PP's call to axe the tax and the oil patch interest that just transition is not realistic. So, I mean, we all know it's going to be the main concern of the election because COVID's over. And now that, I mean, you can see it on any government-funded news site, whether it be CTV, CBC, Global. Anytime you go to any city's website, it's all climate, because that's the new fear to spread. I've got a great video coming up this week talking about a video that one of our community members, CB Fixes All, sent me today, talking about a carbon wallet being proposed. And I don't want to blow too much about that video because it's going to be a good one to sit down and watch. But it's going to talk about travel and what may be coming to Canada down the line. But climate seems to be John Kerry was seen the other day in the United States talking about, now you all remember John Kerry, he ran for president against George Bush. He was talking about how agriculture needs to be destroyed to meet the green climate goals. Okay, so you're openly admitting you need to destroy people's ability to feed their families in order to save the planet. Does that make any sense to anybody else? It does to the elites, because the elites don't care what they're going to propose because the elites will be looked after. They're talking about the plebs. You guys can't afford to feed your family. You shouldn't be able to eat. Are the globalists getting to Pierre? I don't think so. I honestly, again, the times that I've spoken with him, I don't feel that he's got any attachment to the globalists. The problem, and what I'm talking about, is that when you're the leader of the Conservative Party of Canada, you're not the boss. You're just the representative. So I'll give you an example. When Stan Lee was still alive, and you've seen him at all these Marvel movie premieres, making his cameos and everything, people would say, oh, that's Stan Lee. He's the head of Marvel. No. Marvel was owned by Disney. Marvel had other CEOs and CFOs. Stan Lee was more an ambassador to Marvel at that point. He's paid to be there. He's paid to show up and, tout the good name of Marvel. He has nothing to do with their business decisions. Now, Pierre has a little bit more to do with the Conservative Party than just being an ambassador. But what I'm saying is, in comparison, is that Pierre is the leader, but he doesn't walk in and call all the shots. The party decides what's going on. There's people at the top of the party in charge of the party. There's other individuals at play here that fund the parties. I've talked about this when it comes to my municipal run and where I'm getting my funding from when it comes time to run for the election. I'm going to be trying to mostly seek funding from the public because the public are who I'm running to look after. When you start taking money from special interest groups, when you start taking money from greedy corporations or people of influence, you're not in charge of your party. They are, because they come back and maybe you've done some things you shouldn't have done. And they say, you're going to do me this favor, or I'm going to expose you and ruin your life. I'm not saying this is what happens with Pierre. I'm talking hypothetically. And what I see in my own opinion, my observation. I could be 100% wrong, and I would hope that I am. But I just feel that there's other people at play, that Pierre is simply just the leader of the party and not the leader of the party, if that makes sense. The planet is not in trouble, but man because of man is. Well, okay, so and Coraline jumped in. Welcome into the stream. How you doing? There's the good quote from Angry Canadian. The planet is fine, it's not going anywhere we are, says George Carlin. What a genius he was. So here's the thing. We've talked about this before. I even tweeted out Stephen Guilbeault, Mr. Canadian terrorist, eco-terrorist, who And I call him that because he's been charged with eco crimes before becoming a minister of the environment. He said he was off to India this week to talk to them about Canada's green energy plans. That's a waste of time. I said, why aren't you asking India to cut down on their carbon? Why aren't you asking India to join the Paris Accords or cut down their pollution or put in recycling programs? You know why? Because it would never happen. India and China are two of the largest contributors of carbon and pollution in the country, in the world. Nobody is asking them to have a carbon tax. Nobody is asking them to pay a little more into the government just to clean up the planet, because it wouldn't fly there. It wouldn't work. First off, Canada has a ton of forestry that sucks up the carbon in the air to produce oxygen. We're a green country without cutting back on emissions, without charging people to change the weather. And that's what's stupid about the whole thing, is that if Canada was just erased from the map tomorrow, very little would change in terms of pollution in this world. And everyone in this country should be mad as hell when the government comes knocking and says, we're going to charge you a little fee, and then an increased fee and a fee on top of that fee. And then your food is going to go up and your electricity is going to go up. Everything you need to survive essentially is going to go up in price because it's going to save the planet. Bullshit. It's all bullshit. The founder of Greenpeace says carbon agenda is bullshit. It is bullshit. Canada ought to charge other countries for oxygen. You know what? That's getting into Spaceballs territory. Trying to charge people for oxygen. We're not the problem. The UK is not the problem. Germany's not the problem. The United States isn't the problem. Sure, we all contribute, but we're not the problem. In fact, when I was in Idaho and Washington State, and I couldn't get over, now the cost of fuel of per gallon versus per liter, very close because of the inflation of the dollar. But realistically, if you didn't have that inflation, or the exchange rate, I should say, the exchange rate on the dollar, if you didn't have the exchange rate at 35 cents on the dollar, they would be paying considerably less than we do. And when I mentioned to them, that's so great, you guys don't have a carbon tax, they said, what the hell's a carbon tax? And I said, well, our government charges us a tax for all the carbon we emit out of our vehicles, out of our homes, with our energy. And they said, what kind of horse shit is that? That's the Canadian government. And they said, why would you want to live in Canada? Why don't you just move to America? And I said, I'd love to. It's not that easy. It's not that simple. And I wouldn't love to live in America versus Canada. It's one of the things I talked about in my video when I asked about Canadian patriotism versus American. Canada is always going to be my home. It's always my country. I bleed red and white. But I'll be honest, the same thing I said in that video, that 20 years ago, if you asked me, would you ever move to the United States? I'd say, hell no. I'm through and through Canadian. I'm staying in Canada. I'll visit there. Not going to move there. If you asked me today, would you move to America if given the chance? I'd probably still say no eventually, just because of my specific habits, I guess you could say, or lifestyle versus what I'd get in America. But I'd definitely consider it. So I'd still say no, but I definitely have to consider it. Do you buy your gas at the reservation 10 cents cheaper? Absolutely, I do. So out here, there's a reserve about, very close to my home. And they are in competition with a Costco that's right next to it. So when I go to the Costco for fuel, it's the cheapest in town. I think I filled up there today, and I think it was $1.30 or $1.31. per liter, um, which helps to make it a little bit more affordable, because when you're filling 60, 70 liters in a tank versus the 144 that everybody's paying around the neighborhood to take a 5-minute drive, I'm saving about $20 a tank. It's, I mean, you save where you can, right? In the 70s, a joke was made, if the government could tax the air, they would. Yeah, of course they would. Where was Clyde Friday? Did he get the slap on the wrist? So Clyde had a work event. They were out doing like their work, team building annual barbecue, I think it was, kind of thing. So he was away for that. But that's good. He deserves a night off once in a while. It's, no lineup at the reserve, but Costco's lined up to the wall with security directing traffic. It always is, Tech. Always is. I usually, so what I find with that Costco, if you're in the neighborhood, if you're around the area, I drop my kids off at school when they're in school, and then I usually go to get gas, because if you get there before 9 a.m., usually there's no lineup at the Costco. You can just sail right through, and it's easy. But it's picking your times. It's, cigarettes are cheap on the reserve too. I would believe it. I don't smoke, so I wouldn't know. I'm disappointed in some Calgarians that want to separate. So here's where I stand on it, because people have asked me multiple times where I would stand on it. I would never want to separate from Canada, and that's what makes it so hard. Like I said earlier, Canada's my country. Canada will always be my country. I would die for my country. I would die for the people in my country to protect their rights, and to make sure they're safe. However, I don't think that there's Calgarians or Albertans that want to separate. I think what you're finding are people that don't really have any other answer. And it's kind of similar to what Danielle Smith says, that it should be more like Quebec, because you look at Quebec right now. Quebec threatened to separate. They had their referendum. And while a lot of things go against Quebec now when it comes to certain things, I mean, you see it all the time, even with contests in Canada that say it excludes Quebec. There were repercussions for it, but the government took Quebec seriously. And I almost think that the threat of separation would be necessary in order for the government to take this province serious. And that's kind of the problem, is that even before Trudeau got in, Alberta was always seen as the energy pigs, dirty redneck hicks, oil mongers. What a lot of people in Canada forget is just how much Alberta contributes to this country. I'd be saying that if I lived in the United States in comparison to Texas, even if I lived in North Carolina. You have to look at what they contribute to the country. Alberta contributes significantly between transfer payments, between prosperity, GDP. Alberta, we can't help the fact that we're on an oil reserve, one of the largest in the world. That just happens to be where we are. And that's how money is made. And Alberta has always been a province that's happy to share. It's a province that's always been Clyde even said when he was visiting here, he couldn't get over how friendly people were here. That's Alberta. Albertans and Calgarians, especially, very friendly people for the most part. We're always happy to share. We're happy to be prosperous because it means the rest of the country is. But when you have a prime minister that ignores the country or ignores the province, and then has the stones to come here during the stampede and pretend that he's loved by everybody, who won't cut anybody a break, who won't allow us to get our products to market, who's cost thousands upon thousands of jobs in this province, you have people who don't see another answer besides separation. And like I said, if you said to them tomorrow, can we fix all the problems in Alberta? We just flick a switch and the problems are all solved without separating. Would you still want to separate? I guarantee you 90% of them would say no. And that's what I think the problem is. I don't think it's that people want to separate. It's that they feel there's no other choice. If BC was more conservative, it would be easier. Well, yeah, you'd have a little bit of help on the pushback, but we're getting that now from Saskatchewan and Manitoba. They're helping out when it comes to the pushback, especially Scott Moe. Stopping equalization would go a long way to social cohesion. Absolutely, it would. And Tebis also welcome into the stream. That's what I keep saying is that one push is all it would take to kind of show, hey, we're not afraid to push back. If you want to bite the hand that feeds, it's just how it's going to go. And I think it would give a wake up call. Tex says, I'm proud to be Canadian, but the U.S. patriotism makes me envious aside from their own problems. And that's kind of the thing I noticed when I was there too. You can't go a block without seeing an American flag. I don't see that in Canada. And again, I love my country. Don't get me wrong. I love being Canadian. But this is why actors and everything from Canada go to the US. They can't make it here. They can't. It's not the same. We're still seen that way. I get it, CB. It's Trudeau's economy, it equals to $700 a year from every Alberta resident. But the thing is, again, I like my wife's been in oil and gas for over 20 years. And I've had the chance to talk with a lot of higher ups. I've had a lot of chances to talk with the common worker at those offices. And they all say basically the same thing. We're happy to share and happy to, be prosperous because it makes the rest of the country prosperous. We live a good life. They live a good life. You see have not provinces that get help with those equalization payments that help put some programs in place or fix roadways or, give infrastructure assistance where it's needed simply because we're allowed to band together as a country. And I guess that's the point, is that when we're allowed to do our jobs and help this country, we're all helping each other. And that's what makes us Canadian. And that's the problem, is we now have this jackass who sits in the top office in Parliament, who thrives on causing division, who loves, and you see it every time people boo him. He gets that smirk on his face. He loves getting heckled. He loves that people hate him. He's divided this country so much that even when he's gone, I beg to think about how long it will take for people to go back to normal. It's going to be tough. West was always hated by the East. I say we leave. Well, that's your opinion. Again, there's some people, but again, this is where I say I don't think people specifically want to leave, but it's the treatment that makes people say, hey, I'm out of here. I would not want to see a separate Canada, but I understand the desire to separate. Yeah. Remember the Liberal that wanted to give Canadian flag to everybody? Yeah. He loves that people hate him and motivates him to push the country further over the edge. Yes. Yeah. Where's my flag? I have a flag in my garage. I have one in my backyard, and I also have one that usually I have on my car, but the problem is that I have young kids who mess around with it and pull it off. So I haven't had the one in there. But yeah, I'm a proud Canadian. I'm happy to be a Canadian. I'll tell you, even when I went to the US, I was wearing my flag like a badge. People, where are you from? I'm from Canada. And of course, the first thing Americans would always mention, like if you're sitting down at dinner somewhere or anything else, oh, you mean Trudeau and everything? And I'd say, look, we don't like him either. We don't like him either. And when you get to talking to some of these servers or anybody who was asking, usually after a few minutes, they got your point and they said, well, Canada doesn't sound so bad. I told them, no, I love my country. That's where I was saying earlier, if I was asked to move to America tomorrow, I'd probably think about it. But ultimately the answer would be no, because I love my country. Love my country. It's I think it's one of the things that I'm looking forward to most about running for mayor is when so back in February when I tweeted out that I was going to run as a joke, when I called out Jody Gondek, and I got the phone call Um, I remember I was in Manitoba and I was visiting with some friends, and I kind of said, I just got asked to run for mayor of Calgary. I was just asked if I'd do it. And my friends all said, "So what are you going to do?" Like they were excited because they've been watching from where I grew up. All my friends that I grew up with have been watching all the interviews I've been doing and the success that I've had with everything I've done over the last year. And they said, "So what are you going to do? That's a huge honor. That's a big thing." And I said, "I don't know if I want to because I got to put my family out there." And at the time, I was very private about my family. I didn't really show photos of them. We didn't talk much about my family. And I said, I'd love to run, but I put my family at risk. And once I got, there goes Siri trying to listen in on me. There's my phone spying on me. Um, but once it came time to run, like I remember talking with my wife and her saying, "What do you want to do?" And I said, I want to run because I love my country and I love what's going on, or I hate what's going on with it. And I want to make change if I can. And I've been given this honor to essentially not take the easy route, but get an easier start at running for mayor. That a lot of people who want to do those things, unless again you're in with elites, you don't get that opportunity. I'm nothing special. I'm just a guy in his basement making YouTube videos. So to have that opportunity to represent my city, to show what it means to be a Canadian and fight for every one of those 1.6 million Canadians that live in my town, even if they disagree with me, I'm proud to do that. And I think that's the one thing I'm looking forward to most is trying to repair what used to make just this city in general great. And I know a lot of people constantly remind me how difficult it's going to be and that it's probably not going to happen. But you don't know if you don't try. I remember a few years ago when I told people I was working on a book, and I put out my first novel. That again, because of COVID, the novel kind of fell flat because I wasn't able to promote. I wasn't able to go around and do book tours. And people kind of laughed at it. Some of my friends, they didn't like laugh in my face, but they kind of said, "Well, I guess that flaked off. So what are you going to do for a living now?" And I told them, I'm going to be a best-selling author. And I will tell you right now, the majority of people, 90%, 96% of the people I knew said to me, "It's never going to happen. Move on, grow up, get a real job. You're never going to get anywhere with that." I've done it 4 times in the last year. I went bestseller. I thrive when people tell me you can't do something. So when everybody says, "You're never going to be mayor," it's not going to happen. Do you know how hard it is to do that? Good. Good. I'll show them then too and say, "Anything else you don't think I can do?" Because I'm happy to jump on that wagon and try. The point of this isn't to stroke my ego. It's to tell each and every one of you that if you get into that position in life where people say you can't do something, yeah, you can. Nobody's put a golden crown on my head and said, "Here's the easy road. You know, welcome to the club." You got to work for what you want, but we're all capable. Anybody who's watching this stream, live or afterwards, can do the same things I've done. You can be in the same place that I've been. You could do better than I've done. The problem is knowing what you want and going for it. And I think that's the one thing that a lot of people get down with these days because of everything we've been through in the last few years. And again, with everything that's happening in our country, people say, "Well, I'll just make do or I'll just get on with it." You can do anything you want. I've always told my kids, Back to the Future is probably one of my favorite movie franchises in history. And the one line that Doc Brown speaks in that movie is you can do anything if you put your mind to it. And I tell my kids the same thing, that if you just put your mind to it, you can do whatever you want. And I would encourage anybody that if you're fed up with the way things are, and I'm not talking about politics, I'm talking about life, make a change. If you're doing the same thing all the time and it's not working out, then something needs to change if you want things to get better. because what you're doing isn't working. Make a change. And when somebody says, you can't do that, watch me. Because I'll tell you, nothing feels better than when you walk into a room and a bunch of people say, oh, I can't believe you did it. I can't believe this happened. And you get the chance to look them in the eye and say, yeah, what was it you said before I did that? You remember saying I couldn't? I'm not saying you should go for revenge or say I told you so, but it feels damn good not to put somebody in their place, but to know that, hey, I could do it. And I think that's part of the reason I decided to run, was because I remember talking to my wife, and then I talked to my old man. And my old man's very supportive. He supports everything I do. But he even said, do you really think you can win that seat? I mean, do you know how impossible that is? And as soon as he said that, I said, you know what? I'm going to run. Watch me. It's I think it's important in life that you have those goals for yourself, for your own mental health. And mental health is something that I've seen a lot of people struggling with lately. I've had my bad days too. I've had really bad days. Even recently, when you work out and lift weights for your own mental health or your physical health, you always have a spotter there, and it's important to be your own spotter when it comes to your vision of the future, and say that you're the captain of your own ship. The only way you're going to see land is if you steer the ship, you ride the ship. So I hope each and every one of you, I don't want to make this a cringe stream or like Dr. Phil, now you need to live your life. Okay. I'm not going to go there. I'm just saying, I get a little bit on a tangent, but I guess I feel sometimes when we talk about these things, when we talk about the mayor run, when we talk about books, when we talk about, and I've been called out by channels in the past talking about books and things, but I talk about these things because I'm hoping to motivate somebody. I'm hoping to make somebody realize that I didn't do anything special or anything out of this world that nobody's heard of before. I did something very basic, but it only happened for me when I said I can do this. And I hear about people causing themselves harm these days, or thinking that things are over, or that they can't get out of the situation that they're in life. And a fan of my materials sent me a sign that Clyde brought over here when he visited, that said they love watching my YouTube videos, which, I mean, thank you for wasting your time. No, I'm kidding. But that love watching my videos, that it lifts them up, that it makes them feel better. And you could make your own YouTube videos. We'll get better as a country if everybody thinks that way. If everybody thinks, I like being lifted up, so I'm going to do it for other people. I'd love to see a world where everybody thinks of do one good thing every day for somebody else, instead of me. And if we could all focus on doing one good thing, whether it's a stranger or somebody we know, once a day, every day, I think we'd be all right. I think we'd work out. I think things would work out for us. It's and it's harder than it seems. I know sometimes it's easier said than done. But anyways, guys, that's the emotional rip. I don't want to. Yeah. I don't want to derail the stream. That was I get in a little bit of a tangent. I had a friend who was asking me about things like that recently, and I guess it just kind of hits hard for me. I'm gonna start wrapping up the stream because we've gone for over an hour. We're getting to that time, but ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank each and every one of you who come out here, everybody who supports the channel, whether it's memberships, super chats, whether you've bought our products. Don't forget, we got some cool merch in the store. I'm going to be adding some shirts to our store soon. because people say, well, I want more than just your logo on my shirts or my hats. I've got some cool stuff coming. I'm just waiting to get approval from the store because anything political or anything on that line, they have to approve before you get out there. So I'm hoping to get some new stuff in there for you guys soon. But huge thank you to anybody who watches my videos, who shares them out. We've had a ton of new subs recently. There was a time back in December slash February area where, I'd maybe get a new sub every 4 or 5 days or every 2 weeks on average. And lately we've been gaining 50, 60 a day in some spots. So I'm just very grateful for everybody who comes around who watches our videos. And even Tech West becoming a new member. Thank you so much for becoming a member and supporting the channel. I will have, I'm thinking about, when we talk about what I was just discussing about doing things for yourself and stuff, I was thinking at some point, maybe we'll start doing some member only videos, maybe once a month, for people to get some access or early access to videos or something. Just to give people something. I don't like locking people out, but just something to give back to those that support the channel. Everything that comes into the channel, I'll never tell people they have to spend money on this channel, because that is your money that you work for. But every dollar that does come into this channel does go back into it. It does not go to me having a good time or buying more diet drinks. I can assure you that. But I do appreciate that. Tech West, thank you for becoming a member. I hope you guys enjoy this week's videos. Again, I've got 3 so far coming up this week. Now, just a friendly reminder before you guys take off, there will be no stream on Sunday because it is a long weekend. A lot of people are going to be out of town. I'm going to be out of town, back and forth, but I'm also going to be hanging around with my cousin, who's coming to town, who's basically like a sister to me. And I'm really looking forward to getting the long weekend to hang out with her. And then because there's no live stream on Sunday, there, of course, will not be a video for Monday either. Regular videos should resume on Tuesday. So again, I hope you guys enjoy the videos this week. I'll try and do a makeup stream sometime next week to make up for the lack of a stream on a Sunday. Any long weekend, I don't see the need to do a live stream because everybody's busy. And I don't want to suck up your evening. So I hope you guys have a great week. I hope you guys enjoy the videos again that are coming out this week. I've tried to cover as many topics that I think are as interesting as I can for you guys. Enjoy the weather. Get outside, get some fresh air, do something for yourself. And like I said, do something good for one person a day. Come back into the chat next week or whenever we do our next live stream. And let me know what you've done. Tell me what you've done, even if it's something for yourself. I want to hear good things when we come in. We need some positivity around here. So you guys take care. Thank you for coming into the stream. I hope you guys have yourselves a great week again. I'll catch you guys on the next one. Take care.